but the MTA is working to restore that, and by now almost all of the power is back on in those situations. I'm going to send a letter to the congressional delegation with Senate Minority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Assemblyman Carl Heastie that says to our congressional delegation, in this last piece of legislation, it's critical, and we need federal assistance. We need $30 billion over 2 years for the state to meet its obligations, $12 billion for the MTA. Otherwise, there's going to be increases. And Port Authority, if the Port Authority doesn't get funding, you could see a curtailment of construction at LaGuardia or JFK. Construction at LaGuardia and JFK is even more important now than ever before, because that is a significant boost for New York City. And New York City needs a significant boost with all the problems they're experiencing. On schools, today is the deadline to look at infection rates and make a determination. By our infection rates, all school districts can open. Everywhere in the state, every region is below the threshold that we established, which is just great news. And look, let me say it this way. You look at our infection rate, we are probably in the best situation in the country right now, as incredible as that is. So if anybody can open schools, we can open schools. And that's true for every region in the state, period. Now, every school district has submitted plans to the Department of Health and State Education Department. State Education Department, as you know, is a separate department. It's run by the Board of Regents. I have nothing to do with it. Department of Health has the plans, and if they don't meet, Department of Health can disapprove plans if they're not responsible from a health point of view. There are 749 districts that have to submit plans. Of those 749, 127 districts have not submitted plans to the Department of Health, and 50 of those, an additional 50, are either incomplete on their face or deficient. The Department of Health is going to continue going through the plans over the weekend, and on Monday is going to notify those school districts where it's incomplete or deficient. There may be more than the 50, but it's 50 right now, and notify those school districts who have not submitted a plan. As I said, it's 127 now, but Department of Health hasn't finished their review. They will over this weekend, and they'll make those notifications today and Monday to those school districts. So they are all authorized to open. Again, we're going to watch the infection rate between now and the day that schools open. If there's a spike in the infection rate, if there's a matter of concern in the infection rate, then we can revisit it. But for planning purposes, they can reopen. They then go to step 2, right, which is the local school district has to come up with a plan, and they have to deal with their parents and teachers, which is going to be a more complicated issue than I think many of them fully appreciate. I have been deluged with calls from parents and teachers, and there is a significant level of anxiety and concern. And I've said a number of times, these school districts have to be talking to the parents and talking to the teachers, because if the teachers don't come back, then you can't really open the schools. If the parents don't send their students, then you're not really opening the schools. So to facilitate that, I want the school districts to do two things. One, I know where the bulk of the questions are coming from. A set of questions that I have from a policy matter is remote learning and the equity in the remote learning process. We've learned from the experiences we've had during COVID that remote learning can be quite unequal given the demographics and given the circumstances. So I'm going to ask the school districts to post their remote learning plan on how they're going to do remote learning to the extent they are, if they are, in their district. Also, there's been a lot of questions about testing. Most of the plans will say a student comes in, temperature check, and if the student has a temperature, they have to be tested. What does that mean? How is the student tested? Where is the student tested? If there are 20 students who have a temperature on day one, how do you get those students tested? Where do you get them tested? What happens in the interim? Teachers also want to know how a teacher can get a test, and how would that be done? Different school districts have different theories, but that question of testing for students and teachers is a high level of concern. To facilitate that dialogue, I want the school districts to post their quote-unquote testing plan for their school district. So whenever they talk about testing, how will you do that? That's what the parents want to know. How quickly will it be done, etc. So that's a second component of the plan that should be posted on the website. And the third, the questions around contact tracing in a school. So if a student tests positive in a class, tests positive. So the student came in, student had a fever, student then got tested. What is the contact tracing for that positive? Do you test the class? If the student goes to a number of classes, how do you do it? And how will the school do contact tracing? Will the school ask the local government to do it? Will the school ask the local health department to do it? But these three areas are the highly questioned areas almost across all school districts. Remote learning, how do you do testing, how do you do contact tracing? So I want the school districts to do just that component of their plan that they then post. So a parent who has questions on one of those three areas, they can go right to those three specific answers rather than wading through the entire district's plan, because some of these district plans are quite lengthy. So I'm asking each school district to post those three components. Second, I'm asking all the school districts to have discussions with the parents. There should be at least 3 discussion sessions with parents where the parents are given notice. They can be online, however it works for the local school district, but they have to communicate with the parents and explain the plan and answer the questions of the parents. and not every parent can make any one date. So the school district should have 3 opportunities between now and August 21st. And they publicize them and they say, here are the 3 dates, and parents can participate online however they do it. But parents need an opportunity to be heard, and the schools should welcome the opportunity to actually explain the plan. For the Big 5 school districts, I'd like them to set up 5 sessions between now and August 21, just because there are more parents and you want to give parents an opportunity to ask a question. You'll have thousands of parents, so even 5 is, I don't think, overly exhaustive, and I don't know how many questions you can get to, but the more dialogue, the better. I'm also asking the school districts to set up at least one discussion just with the teachers, where they go through the plan and everybody is in one conversation, teachers, administrators, and they discuss exactly what is in the plan, and if the teachers have questions or concerns, let's get them aired and let's get them in a point where everybody is hearing the same thing. So, good news, all schools can reopen. Again, we have the best infection situation in the country. If any state can do it, this state can do it, because we've been smart from day one. We do the masks, we do the social distancing, we've kept that infection rate down, and we can bring the same level of intelligence to the school reopening that we brought to the economic reopening. Our school guidance has been touted as the smartest in the country. Our economic reopening guidance was the smartest in the country. So if anyone can do it, we can do it. But we have been successful because we've been smart, and we have to continue to be smart. And with the school districts, I want those 2 tasks performed. One, specific plan by school district, online, by the end of next week. Here's our testing plan. Here's our contact tracing plan. Here's our remote learning plan, as they define it in their local reopening plan. So here's when we say if a student tests positive, this is how we do testing. When we say a teacher can get testing when they want it, this is how we do it. If a student becomes positive, if a teacher becomes positive, this is how we do contact tracing. To the extent we do remote learning, if they do remote learning, this is how we do it, and this is specifically how we're going to address the equity issues that we encountered the first time. So those 3 plans, which are components of the overall plan, online, posted, people can read them. Second task, talk to the parents, talk to the teachers. Talk to the parents, talk to the teachers. 3 online sessions with the parents between now and August 21, except for the Big 5 school districts. They do 5 sessions between now and August 21. So parents have an opportunity for their question to be heard, where it's just not numerically impossible. And then a session with the teachers alone. Teachers are invited to the parents' discussions, but teachers alone, because teachers do have a separate set of issues. Teachers are older often, so a session with the teachers, because that dialogue is everything, as I've been saying. This is not really a bureaucratic decision. It's a parental decision. Okay, operator, take questions, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I would like to remind everyone, in order to ask a question, press star, then the number one on your telephone keypad. And as a reminder, please limit one question per participant to respect the time frame. If you have a follow-up question, press star one again to be back on queue. Thank you. We'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster. And your first question comes from the line of Dan Clark. Your line is now open.
Hey, Dan. Good morning. Say something, Dan. Talk to me, Dan. Don't diss me, Dan.
Sir Clark, your line is now open.
Speak, Dan. Yes, I can. How are you?
Oh, good morning, Governor. I'm good. How are you?
Good, buddy.
So I have a question for you. It was going through my mind yesterday. And so we saw with the nursing homes that primarily asymptomatic people brought the disease into their nursing homes, and that's how it spread so quickly there. How do we prevent the same thing from happening in schools if we're not testing students and just screening them for symptoms?
Are you a parent or are you a teacher? That is the question. That is one of the top 5 questions that I'm asked. And that's what they're going to ask the local school districts. Some school districts have a better answer than other districts, by the way, right? And remember, it's up to the local district to come up with a specific plan. But that is a very big question. In other words, you have some school districts who primarily talk about temperature taking. Temperature taking. And if a kid has a temperature, then test that child, certainly. But how about the asymptomatic spread, right? Governor DeWine, Ohio, a great guy, and I hope the negative test is the one that holds. But that's an asymptomatic spread. Nursing homes, asymptomatic spread. What happens, how do you detect the asymptomatic spread in a school unless you're doing testing? Because if you're not doing testing, the only way you detect asymptomatic spread is when somebody gets sick. But that is a very good question. And that's a question that the local school districts are going to be asked, I can tell you that, from both the parents and the teachers. The answer is testing. But then the question becomes, okay, what percentage of testing? Who's going to do the testing? Do you have that set up? But that is the conversation. That is a very good question.
Thank you, Governor.
Thanks.
Again, your next question comes from the line of Marina Villanueva. Your line is now open.
Hello, Marina.
Oh, hello. Governor, I was wondering about, there has been some calls from unions and some parents as well about perhaps the need for a statewide policy when it comes to some of these tough questions that, you were just talking about when it comes to, when to close down, how to deal with contact tracing. So I was just wondering if you think, when, as back in March, there was some sort of statewide policy about when schools should shut down, as soon as there's been a COVID case, do you think that there's a need for that? And I was also just wondering if you had gotten tested yourself following your trip to Georgia, and what was the result of that result? CARES
Yeah.
Act funding is used for that.
Yeah. I'm negative after the test. The statewide policy is viral infection rate opening and closing. The school districts, 750 school districts in the state, they are very different. They're different sizes, shapes, configurations, communities, and there is no one size fits all. These questions of remote learning, testing, contact tracing, these have to be done district by district because the circumstances are that different district by district. And what I want to make sure is they get the information up, and that's why separate plan posted, contact tracing, separate plan remote learning, separate plan testing, and get it up, and then schedule these discussions to talk it through. But I can't fashion a plan that will work in every school district because they are just too different, and the circumstances are too different.
Okay, and when it comes to starting or delaying the start of school, can individual school districts decide if they want to delay the start of school or not, or delay when students can start being brought into the classrooms?
Yeah, we're giving flexibility to school districts. Again, you have, like the phased economic reopening, there was no one size fits all. Regions were in different circumstances, and we did have different timing for different regions, if you remember. The same is more true with school districts. There's 750 of them. So the geographic footprint is even more refined. And if their plan on remote learning, their plan of in-school, their plan of hybrid, how long do they close their school district if they get a positive, how many positives, what is their schedule, that we leave to them. Thank you very much. Operator?
Yes, sir. Your next question comes from the line of Nick Reisman from Spectrum News. Your line is now open.
Hello, Mr. Nick. Nicholas?
Excuse me, Mr. Reisman, your line is now open.
Wake up, Nick. Speak. Hit the button. Hit the other button. Hit all the buttons.
Mr. Nick Reisman, your line is now open. Please go ahead.
Why don't you try someone else in the meantime, operator?
Yes, Governor.
Hello.
Oh, that got him.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Nick.
Hi. Two questions for you. One, could you clarify what the guidance is on mask wearing and PPE use in schools? Will students and teachers be required to wear masks? I believe there's some discrepancy between DOH guidance and SED guidance on that. And number two, what's the outlook for high school sports? Will high school sports be able to be done safely with or without fans this fall?
Yeah, let me turn that over to Jim Malatras.
Hey, Nick. Thank you, Governor. The rule is that you must wear masks at all times if social distancing cannot take place or occur. So you have to have a mask with you at all times. And if families or a student does not have a mask, the school district must provide a mask. And we strongly recommend that mask wearing happens in DOH guidelines, even through the course of instruction and other activities through the school day, to ensure the maximum level of health compliance, and that is the DOH guidelines. And on sports, right now there is no interscholastic sports approved yet, and that's something that's going to be ongoing discussions for.
I spoke to some school districts, Nick, that want to have students come in and leave before lunch just because they don't want the lunch situation without a mask. They think the meals are one of the most difficult things to do because that's basically, indoor dining if you want to look at it through that lens. So, but anyway, that's a school district by school district subject to the statewide guidance that Jim talked about.
Your next question comes from the line of Juliet Papa. Your line is now open.
Hi, Governor. How you doing?
Miss Papa, you never call, you never write.
Yes.
Where have you been?
Oh, I've been here and there. But thank you. Anyway, you know what I wanted to
Next on News Channel 13 live at noon, breaking news this hour. Governor Cuomo says all schools can open this fall in New York State, but some questions still remain. And Tropical Storm Isaias is long gone, still affecting people in our area, though.